Hi everyone and welcome to my presentation. Today I'm going to talk to you about can we influence the attractiveness of aged care as a career choice through our innovative trials such as intergenerational practice. I'd like to acknowledge my co-workers, Dr. Yuneng Wang, Professor Annika Fitzgerald, Dr. Jennifer Cartmel, Dr. Xanthi Galenko and Dr. Bridget Langing in helping with this research. So I'm going to take my video off so you can focus on the slides. I find that sometimes the video is a little distracting. But I'll be back a bit later to answer any questions. In aged care, we're seeing this rapid transformation. We're seeing our Royal Commission really shine light on some of our worst work, and we're seeing the media picking up those stories and running with it. Now, all of this is really increasing our negative reputation of aged care. And aged care has always suffered from a bad reputation as being a dirty job and something that's not sexy from an attraction perspective. But these increasing stories and these increasing horror stories has really increased our shortage of workers. Now, the pandemic has also told us that we don't have that global supply of workers anymore, and that's going to be problematic going forward. And our policies at government level has this big push for this increase in university qualifications over vet qualifications. Now, within both childcare and aged care, we're going to see this merging, this biggest shortage of workers that we're ever going to have. So, in all this context, there's been this growth in the need of care services. If nothing else, the pandemic has told us how important what we do is. And while some society members have actually said and increased their value, their sense of value around care work, a lot of people have really hung on to these bad news stories that have come out in the media. In addition, there's this increasing demand for teenagers to make vocational choices by the time they're 17. We see this push for university level qualifications. We see the new careers, so to speak, push for much more of a general worker rather than an aged care worker. So what we did was, well, what is the difference between childcare and aged care? Because really, both sectors have similar problems. There's got both sectors who have shortages of workers, and they've got actually the same pressures among them. So we did a review of the sector's workforces, and what we found was that the qualifications were similar. We attracted female workers more so than male workers, and that there was a certain level of personality that was attracted to the role. So your empathetic, caring personality were more likely to apply for positions within the sectors. However, research to date hasn't actually looked at merging these workforces at all. In fact, it's so segregated that we often think of childcare and aged care, even in our own minds, as separate, when in reality we're talking about the care workforce. So the merging of the roles and the creation of new career paths between childcare and aged care has not previously been considered. And instead, most of the literature argues that one career path can exist across sectors if that role remains the same. Yet the hybrid nature of these careers would result in an entirely new career path that goes beyond the current thinking of what is making up our core workforce. So what this study is really looking at is, well, can we actually create this hybrid career? And if so, what would that look like? And how do we actually influence the attractiveness of carers to the sector through intergenerational programs or innovative programs that we're doing already in our sector? So hybrid careers was this new term. We're really pushing forward to this idea that we're actually merging two professions, and there might be a whole new job. We're not just talking about hybrid roles, which is commonplace in our language around workforce, because hybrid roles combines our previously uncombined skill sets into the same role type. So you might have a care worker with a care worker. What we're saying is that we're going to take bits of those programs and actually create an intergenerational worker, which would mean that they would do different roles itself, but there would be similarities between them. So they might be based on the activities officer or the diversity worker rather than the care worker itself. So this study really explores this possibility of creating this hybrid career path that goes across that childcare and aged care sectors in order to help with both sectors' retention and turnover challenges. Now, in the literature to date, we talk about this shift in careers from the perspective of the employer and the employee. So in the late 1990s, we started talking about this boundaryless career. And this boundaryless career really made the onus on the employee rather than the employer. So previously, the employer promoted you when they felt that you were ready. Now the employee sees their careers as their own and they take more ownership of it. So boundaryless careers is this sequence of job opportunities that go beyond the boundaries of a single employment setting. And it does cross organizational, relationship, hierarchical, work life, and psychological boundaries. But the literature in the boundaryless careers does not talk about how we create new job roles which cross professional boundaries. So then we've got this concept of a protein career orientation, and that refers to the agentic attitude towards one's career, where employees aspire to be self-directed in their career choice and guided by their own intrinsic values. And we see this a lot in our aged care workers because they are, and same with childcare, they're very much related to who they are as a person and what that means for them to do that job. So research in this space has found that if you have a protein career orientation, then you have more of an enabler to your career meta competencies, such as you developing vocational identities. It facilitates and protects employees when there's not that many choices around. And what we're arguing is that this career intervention through intergenerational programs may actually influence people's vocational identity and their career intentions. Now, vocational identity is this idea that we create who we are based on what we do. And it's a core development activity. Now, a lot of us start our vocational identity growth in adolescence when we start choosing where we want to do and what we want to do for life. But there's also, we all know that on average, we're going to get 7 careers. So if that's the case, then of course, vocational identity changes across that spectrum as well. So having a clear vocational identity actually refers to the clarity of one's work and the careers relating to our beliefs, our interests, our goals, our values, and our ability, as well as the availability of suitable occupations in that space. So of course it's contextual and it's influenced by the opportunity and exposure to new career paths. And that's really important because what we're saying is that if we're intervening, then we're actually potentially broadening the scope and our exposure to other sectors, and therefore we could actually influence them positively. So this study really focused on having 2 research questions. So does being exposed to new career options change their perceptions of that career path and what it looks like? And does being exposed to new career options change their perceptions of their current career path? So are we actually enabling or enhancing their commitment to their own career path? So our program ran across 16 weeks across 4 sites, and what we're looking at is a slice of data around employees. So we did pre and post interviews with each of our 16 employees from childcare and aged care that were involved in the program. Each of these employees completed an individual journal, and they completed together at each site a program level journal. I used NVivo to help with me with data managing this data. So the results, let's jump right into the results. The results said that we all come with this preconception about the sector, all right? And it comes from our previous experience or our stereotypes from both sides. For example, a child carer, when I asked before they entered the program, would you like to work or what does it mean to work in aged care? And their response was, I don't know. I don't know whether it's something that I would want to do. But then again, it could just be me because it's unknown to me. So I don't really know a lot about it. And I don't know how I would deal with death and sickness and all of that. I think I would just find that really hard. You know, you don't get that around here. So it's something that I would look at and go, well, what's it like? How does it work? But it's not something I'd be chomping at a bit to get. Part of this program also allowed people to recognize the similarities between those workers. And that's really important because that's part of your identity development, right? So when you start saying, well, who am I and what do I want to do and can I do this? And these questions that come about in our vocational identity, you really want to link back to, well, what does it mean? Now, when they were exposed to our program, what they did find was that the expectation about the role was vastly different to what happened. So they identified more similarities between their workers. So an aged carer said, well, we basically have to teach them boundaries. We have to teach them respect and we have to teach them that. Yeah, it's okay to have your own thinking. So with a child carer, I would say that it would be the same, but it's also making sure that they're safe. Whereas a childcarer said, I'm not going to say it's the same as childcare, but I think it's similar in routines. I feel like it'd be definitely be like, well, as an open room in the mornings or something. I think that there's, when you're in any kind of care, that there has to be routine, because otherwise it'll kind of fall apart. The study also revealed that participants had a different nuanced approach and understanding about the role after they were exposed. So I just think about that they're in aged care. So they might be immobile, they might have mental health issues that we need to take care of. But when I interacted with this group, they're all independent and their minds are very active. Similarly, an aged carer said, well, I can learn from them to understand the teacher, or how to play with the children, or how to communicate with the children. And when asked if she wanted to move into that career, she said, well, I would like to. If I had the time, I would love the job if we were looking at a hybrid career. This program really exposed the importance of critical incidents and how they shape what we want to do and how we're doing it. So critical incidents put a big standstill on everything, because in this particular site, people weren't prepared for death. And death is a normal experience in aging. It's not a normal experience in childcare. So when we're creating these hybrid careers, we need to think about that. It also provided the ability for people to have a more nuanced understanding of whether they would want a career in the opposite sector. So this particular carer said, well, child carer, so they said, yes, it would be nice to have those adult conversations, but no, I think it'd be sad, because even some of the patients who come here, you hear about their families are away, like they're literally by themselves, and it was really sad to hear their stories. And it was sad to know that there was a possibility that they could pass away, because there was a couple that was sick that missed a day to here just because they were sick, and all the kids would be like, well, who were they, where were they, and we'd double check that they're okay, because there is that possibility of death that we identified. For others, being part of the program really strengthened their view of their own career. So after making these relationships, I could do that. I could go and hang out with them for the day. I could take them shopping. I could do all that and have those relationships. I still don't think I could do other parts like the showering, cleaning. I don't think I would enjoy that part. But if they could take themselves to the toilet and shower, then I could easily do it. So I think it's definitely, yeah. Whereas before I just thought, ew, I don't want to clean that person. And I feel terrible saying that, but that's what you do think, that your mind just goes straight there. But after building relationships and actually hanging out with them, I could go out and hang out with them all day. Now, this really strengthened this idea that caring isn't just dirty work. And there's a whole literature on the dirty work career choices. But this one really highlighted that, we do need to advertise that not all care work in aged care is dirty in that sense. Others found that they could transfer some of those skills, and they really enjoyed hanging out with people, and particularly with children. And whereas another carer just said, no, I just find it more enjoyable working with younger kids, and that's where I want to go. So this study really highlighted that vocational experiences that are gained through programs like intergenerational practice do strengthen people's perceptions of their career choices. And while it's not for everyone, it is actually possible to create a hybrid role and think more differently in the future about how we're going to address the constant attractiveness conundrum that we've got, which is aged care is not an attractive career choice. But if we create a hybrid career, which allows people exposure to both sectors, then we actually might have an influence and more increased understanding of where our population comes from when we're starting to work in this space. So study was the first study to explore how a trial program influences career choice, and it did provide qualitative insights, but of course with qualitative insights you get a smaller number of participants, therefore you can't presume transferability at all, and more research is needed. But thank you so much for coming to our presentation, and I look forward to having a chat to you shortly. Thank you.